The mining station on asteroid Kepler 442b was one of the coldest places humans had ever tried to work. The temperature outside dropped to minus 200 degrees on a warm day. Ice covered everything like a thick white blanket that never melted. But this cold was exactly what made the asteroid so valuable to Earth. Deep inside the frozen rock were special crystals that only formed in extreme cold. These crystals were needed to build the engines that let spaceships travel faster than light. Without them, humans would be stuck flying slowly between stars for hundreds of years. Foreman had been the foreman of Mining Section 7 for 3 years now. Every morning he put on his thick thermal suit and walked through the mining area to check that everything was working properly. The suit was heavy and made him move slowly, but it kept him alive in the deadly cold outside. The mining machines worked day and night, their heated drill bits cutting through ice and rock. Steam rose from where the hot drills met the frozen ground. The machines made a steady humming sound that echoed across the empty landscape. Foreman liked his job even though it was dangerous. He was good at keeping his workers safe and making sure they found the crystals Earth needed. His team trusted him because he always put their safety first. He checked every piece of equipment twice and never let anyone take unnecessary risks. On this particular morning, something was different. As Foreman walked his usual path between the machines, his radio started making strange sounds. Instead of the normal chatter from his workers, he heard musical tones that seemed to rise and fall like a sad song. The sounds were beautiful but also frightening. They seemed to come from somewhere beyond the mining area, out in the dark caves that stretched deep into the asteroid. Foreman had explored those caves before and knew they were empty. At least they were supposed to be empty. He followed the sounds, walking carefully over the slippery ice. His helmet lights cut through the darkness ahead of him. The musical tones got louder as he moved away from the bright work areas and into the shadows near the cave entrance. Foreman had worked in space for 15 years and had seen many strange things. He had met aliens who looked like giant insects and others who were made of living crystal. But nothing had prepared him for what he found in that cave. 3 enormous shapes huddled together in the darkness. At first, Foreman thought they might be ice formations or maybe broken pieces of machinery. But as his lights hit them, he saw that they were alive. They were dragons. Not the dragons from old Earth stories, but real alien creatures that looked similar. Each one was as big as a small spaceship. They had long necks, powerful wings folded against their bodies, and scales that sparkled with frost. Their eyes glowed softly in the darkness. The largest dragon lifted its head when it saw Foreman approaching. Ice covered its scales like armor, but underneath, Foreman could see hints of deep blue and silver colors. The creature looked directly at him with intelligent eyes that seemed very old and very sad. The dragon made the musical sound again, but this time Foreman's translation device caught some of the meaning. The words appeared on his helmet display. Help. Cold. Dying. Please. Foreman felt his heart racing inside his chest. These creatures were clearly intelligent. They could speak and they were asking for help. They were also obviously suffering from the terrible cold that would kill any living thing not protected by thermal suits. The smallest dragon, barely moving in the back, was in the worst condition. Its breathing was shallow and weak. Foreman realized it was probably a young one, and it was dying from the cold faster than the adults. He had to make a decision quickly. He could report this to his supervisors on Earth and wait for orders. That would be the safe thing to do, but by the time he got permission to help, these creatures would probably be dead. The large dragon spoke again, and this time the translation was clearer. We are lost. Our ship is broken. This cold world will kill us. You make warmth. Please help our young one. Foreman looked at the 3 aliens shivering in the cave. They had somehow found the human mining operation and come here asking for help. They were strangers from another world, but they were also living beings in trouble. He activated his emergency radio. This is Foreman Foreman calling base operations. I need the medical team and Dr. Hee-jin out here right away. I found something incredible. While he waited for help to arrive, Foreman moved closer to the dragons. The large one watched him carefully but did not seem afraid. When Foreman held up his hands to show he meant no harm, the dragon made a soft sound that almost seemed like gratitude. The young dragon in the back was getting worse. Its eyes were starting to close and its breathing was becoming even more shallow. Foreman knew that feeling from his early days in space when his heating system had failed. The cold was like a living thing that ate away at your strength until you just wanted to sleep forever. He took off his outer thermal layer and carefully placed it over the young dragon. It was not much, but it was something. The creature's eyes opened slightly and looked at him with what seemed like surprise and hope. "Help is coming," Taman said, even though he was not sure the dragons could understand him. "We're going to get you somewhere warm." The large dragon made another musical sound, longer this time. The translation device worked hard to process the complex message. "You show kindness to strangers. This is rare among the star peoples. We will remember this." 20 minutes later, Dr. Hyojin arrived with the medical team and engineer Wubin. They all stopped and stared when they saw the 3 massive alien creatures in the cave. "This is incredible," Dr. Hyojin whispered. "They're definitely intelligent. Look at their brain case structure. And these scales, they're designed for a much warmer climate." Wubin was already running scans with his equipment. "Their body temperature is dropping fast. At this rate, they'll die within a few hours. We need to get them somewhere with heat, and we need to do it now." The large dragon spoke again. "We trust the kind human leader. Your voice sounds good to us. Help us and we will not forget." Taman made his decision. "We're taking them to the thermal processing station. It's the only place big enough and warm enough for creatures this size." Dr. Hyojin looked worried. "Taman, we don't know anything about their biology. Moving them could be dangerous. Leaving them here will definitely kill them," Taman replied. "They came to us for help. I won't turn away anyone who asked for help, no matter what planet they're from." And so began the most unusual rescue operation in the history of human space mining. Moving 3 massive alien dragons across the icy surface of the asteroid was the hardest job Taemin and his team had ever attempted. Each dragon was the size of a small building and weighed as much as 10 mining vehicles put together. Worse, they were growing weaker by the hour as the terrible cold drained their life away. Dr. Hyojin worked quickly to understand what was happening to their bodies. Her medical scanner showed that the aliens' blood was becoming thick and slow like syrup. Their hearts were beating slower and slower as they tried to save energy. The youngest dragon was in the worst danger. Its body temperature had dropped so low that it could barely move. "We need to move fast," Dr. Hyojin told Taman. "The young one might not survive another hour in this cold." Wubin brought over the anti-gravity lifts that they normally use to move heavy mining equipment. These machines could lift almost anything, but they had never been used on living creatures before, especially not aliens that nobody understood. "Will these hurt them?" Taman asked, looking at the powerful lifting devices. "I don't think so," Wubin replied, "but we need to be very careful. One wrong move and we could injure them badly." The largest dragon seemed to understand what they were trying to do. It spoke to the other 2 dragons in their musical language. The sounds were beautiful but sad, like a song about saying goodbye. Then it looked at Taman and made sounds that the translator turned into words. "We trust you, Warmaker. Do what you must to save our young. We are too weak to help ourselves now." Taman felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. These creatures had put their lives in human hands. If something went wrong, it would be his fault. But doing nothing would definitely mean watching them die slowly in the freezing cave. The team worked together to position the anti-gravity lifts around the first dragon. The machines hummed as they created invisible force fields that could lift objects without touching them. Slowly, carefully, they raised the massive creature off the ground. The dragon made a sound of surprise as it floated in the air, but it did not seem to be in pain. Its large eyes watched the humans with curiosity as they guided it toward the thermal processing station. The thermal processing station was normally used to heat the mining equipment and keep the work areas from freezing completely. It was the warmest place on the entire asteroid, with huge heaters that could melt ice instantly. More importantly, it had enough space for 3 large dragons. Moving all 3 aliens took 4 hours. The team had to be extremely careful not to bump them against rocks or equipment. They also had to stop several times to check that the dragons were still alive. The youngest one was barely breathing by the time they got it inside the warm building. As soon as the dragons were inside the thermal station, amazing things began to happen. The ice that covered their scales started to melt away like snow in spring sunshine. Underneath the frost, their true colors appeared. The scales were not just blue and silver, but also deep purple and green that changed as they moved. They were the most beautiful creatures Taemin had ever seen. The youngest dragon was the first to show improvement. As warmth returned to its body, it lifted its head and made a sound that was clearly happy. Its breathing became stronger and its eyes became brighter. The adult dragons made joyful sounds when they saw their young one recovering. Dr. Hyjin monitored all three aliens closely with her medical equipment. "This is incredible," she said to Taman. "Their body chemistry is unlike anything I've ever studied. As they warm up, their blood is becoming more efficient. It's like their bodies are designed to adapt to different temperatures." The largest dragon, who had been barely moving before, now lifted its massive head and looked directly at Taimin. When it spoke, its voice was much clearer and stronger than before. "You have saved our lives, Warm Maker. I am called Kethvar. These are Silandra and young Pexhai. We owe you a debt that can never be repaid." Taman was amazed that the dragon had a name and could introduce the others. "I'm Taman," he said. "These are Dr. Heejin, Wubin, and Yunsu. We're glad we could help you." "Where do you come from?" Dr. Heejin asked. "How did you end up on this frozen asteroid?" Kethavar's eyes dimmed slightly as he remembered. "We are Velthari. We are travelers who explore the spaces between stars. Our ship was damaged by a storm in hyperspace. We were forced to land here, but this world is too cold for our kind. Our ship's heating system was destroyed in the crash. Can you repair your ship?" Wubin asked. "The damage is too great," Silandra replied, speaking for the first time. Her voice was higher than Kethvar's, but just as musical. "The cold has frozen all our repair systems. Even if we could fix them, we do not have the materials we need." Young Pexhai, who was now feeling much better, looked around the thermal station with wide eyes. "This place feels good," he said. "Like home but different. You humans are very clever to make such warmth in the cold." Taman realized that these aliens were stranded. Their ship was broken and they had no way to contact their people. Without help, they would eventually die on this frozen rock, even with the thermal station to keep them warm. "How long can you survive here?" he asked. "The warmth helps much," Kethvar replied, "but we need different food than what grows on cold worlds, and our people will be searching for us. If we cannot contact them, they may never find us." Dr. Heejin had an idea. "Maybe we can help with both problems. Our supply ships bring food from many different worlds, and our communication equipment is very powerful. We might be able to send a message to your people." "You would do this for strangers?" Silandra asked, sounding surprised. "You're not strangers anymore," Taman said. "You're our guests, and guests should be helped no matter where they come from." The three dragons looked at each other and made soft musical sounds. Then Kethvar spoke again. "We have traveled to many worlds and met many different peoples, but we have rarely found kindness like this. Most species ask what they will gain before they offer help. What's the point of being powerful if you don't use that power to help others?" Taman replied. Kethavar's eyes began to glow brighter. "You speak wisdom, Taman of the humans. Perhaps this meeting was meant to happen. Perhaps there is more we can do together than either of us could do alone." As the dragons settled into their warm new home, none of the humans realized that this was just the beginning of something that would change the entire galaxy. Over the next few days, the dragons grew stronger and more comfortable in their warm new home. The thermal processing station had become the most interesting place on the entire asteroid. Workers would find excuses to visit just to catch a glimpse of the magnificent aliens who were now living there. Kethvar, Silandra, and young Pexhai were eager to learn about humans and how they lived. They asked many questions about Earth, about human families, and about why people chose to work in such dangerous places so far from home. "We travel because we love to see new things," Kethvar explained to Taimin during one of their conversations. "But you humans travel to help your people back home. You risk your lives in the cold and darkness to find crystals for others you will never meet. This is very different from most species we have encountered." Dr. Heejin spent hours studying the dragons with their permission. She discovered that their brains worked very differently from human brains. While humans thought in straight lines, the Velthari thought in complex three-dimensional patterns that let them understand space and shapes in amazing ways. "Show me," Pexhai said one day when Dr. Heejin was explaining how human mining worked. "I want to see how you find the crystals in the rock." Wubin brought out the geological surveys and mapping equipment. He showed the young dragon how humans used sound waves and energy scanners to look inside the asteroid and find where the valuable crystals were hidden. Pexhai studied the data for a long time, tilting his head this way and that. Then something incredible happened. His eyes began to glow brighter, and he started making soft musical sounds. There, he said suddenly, pointing with one of his claws at a section of the map. The crystal formation continues much deeper than your machines can see. And there, your scanners miss the connections between the crystal veins. Wu Bin looked at the areas Pexhai had indicated. How can you tell? Our equipment is very advanced. Rock speaks to those who listen properly, Silandra explained. We hear the patterns inside stone the way you hear voices in air. The crystals sing very softly, but we can hear their songs. To test this, Timon organized a small expedition to one of the areas Pexhai had identified. The human scanners showed only ordinary rock, but when they drilled down, they found the largest crystal formation anyone had ever discovered on the asteroid. This is impossible, Wu Bin said, staring at the beautiful blue crystals that filled the tunnel they had carved. Our equipment should have detected something this big. Your machines listen with metal and electricity, Kethavar said. We listen with our whole beings. Different kinds of listening find different things. Word of the discovery spread quickly through the mining station. The crystals Pexhai had found were not only large but also of the highest quality anyone had ever seen. They would be worth more than the entire previous year's mining output. But the dragons were not interested in the money or glory. They seemed more excited about sharing knowledge and working together to solve problems. We have been alone in our ship for so long, Silandra told Dr. Haijin. It is wonderful to have others to talk with and learn from. Your species thinks in such interesting ways. The partnership between humans and dragons was working so well that nobody expected trouble to arrive. But trouble came anyway, in the form of a massive Krillian warship that appeared on the edge of the solar system. Jae-hyun, the communications officer, was the first to detect the approaching vessel. Foreman Taemin, he called over the radio. We have a big problem. There's a Krillian battlecruiser heading straight for us. Taemin felt his stomach drop. The Krillians were known throughout the galaxy as bullies who took what they wanted from smaller, weaker species. Their ships were heavily armed and their crews were ruthless. What do they want? Taemin asked. They're broadcasting mining rights claims for this entire sector, Jae-hyun replied. They say we're trespassing and need to leave immediately or face the consequences. The dragons had been listening to the conversation. Kethavar's eyes began to glow brighter and his voice became deeper when he spoke. Krillians are takers, not makers, he said. They destroy and steal instead of building and creating. They will harm your people and take everything you have worked for. But what can we do? Taemin asked. We're just a mining operation. We don't have weapons that could fight a warship like that. Silandra moved closer to Kethavar and young Pexhai joined them. Even though Pexhai was still recovering from their ordeal in the cold, he stood ready to help his elders. Velthari do not fight with metal weapons and explosions, Kethavar said. We fight with understanding and harmony. We know the songs that hold the universe together. Before Taemin could ask what that meant, the dragons began to sing. But this was not like the beautiful, sad music they had made when they were cold and dying. This was something completely different. The sound started low and deep like the rumbling of an earthquake. Then it grew higher and more complex as all three dragons joined their voices together. The harmony was unlike anything the humans had ever heard. It seemed to vibrate through the asteroid itself, making the very air shimmer. What are they doing? Dr. Haijin asked, watching in amazement as the dragon's eyes glowed brighter and brighter. The answer came from the space around them. The Krillian warship, which had been approaching at high speed, suddenly began to slow down. Its engines started making strange noises and its weapon systems began to flicker and fail. The ship is losing power, Jae-hyun reported, his voice full of disbelief. All their systems are shutting down one by one. The dragon song continued, growing more complex and beautiful. Somehow the musical frequencies they were producing were interfering with the advanced technology on the Krillian ship. The massive warship, which had seemed so threatening just minutes before, was now drifting helplessly in space. How is this possible? Wu Bin whispered. They understand the frequencies that make technology work, Dr. Haijin realized. They're not just singing. They're communicating directly with the quantum forces that power the ship's systems. The Krillian captain's angry voice filled the radio channels. What have you done to our ship? This is an act of war. Kethavar stopped singing and approached the communication system. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that made the equipment vibrate. Krillian shipwriter, do you know of the Velthari? There was a long silence from the warship. When the Krillian captain finally answered, his tone had changed completely from angry to respectful. You are Velthari, but your people have not been seen in this part of the galaxy for hundreds of years. We choose when to be seen, Kethvar replied calmly, and we choose to protect those who show kindness to strangers. These humans saved our lives when we were dying. Now they are under Velthari protection. The negotiation that followed amazed all the humans who listened to it. The conversation between Kethvar and the Krillian captain was unlike anything the humans had ever witnessed. Instead of threats and demands, the dragon spoke with calm authority that seemed to carry the weight of centuries. Captain Grentok, Kethvar said, somehow knowing the Krillian's name without being told. Your people remember the old agreements. The Velthari taught your ancestors how to travel between stars. Do you forget the debt your species owes? The silence from the disabled warship stretched for long minutes. When Captain Grentok finally spoke, his voice was much quieter than before. We remember the old stories, he admitted, but the Velthari vanished long ago. Many thought you were just legends. Legends do not disable your weapons, Silandra said, joining the conversation. Her musical voice carried a hint of amusement. Legends do not sing your engines to sleep. Young Pexai, excited to be part of something important, added his own voice. We are very real, Krillian Captain, and we do not like bullies who steal from peaceful workers. Dr. Hyajin was recording everything, trying to understand the relationship between these species. How do the Krillians know about the Velthari? She whispered to Taymin. The dragons must be much older and more important than we realized, Taymin replied quietly. Kethvar continued speaking to the Krillian captain with patient authority. These humans found us dying in the cold. They risked their own safety to save our lives. They asked for nothing in return except the chance to help fellow beings in need. Such kindness is rare in the galaxy. The Warmakers work in harmony with the stone in space, Silandra added. They take only what they need and harm nothing that does not need to be harmed. This is the old way, the way of balance. Captain Grentok's response revealed something that shocked everyone listening. The humans have Velthari protection? But they are such a young species. They have been in space for less than 100 of their years. Age is not wisdom, Kethvar replied. We have watched many species grow old without growing wise. We have seen powerful empires that forgot how to be kind. But these humans, though young, remember what it means to help strangers. Pexai spoke up again, his young voice bright with enthusiasm. They gave us warmth when we were freezing. They shared their food when we were hungry. They asked no payment and wanted no reward. They helped us simply because it was the right thing to do. The negotiation continued for hours. The dragons did not threaten or intimidate the Krillians. Instead, they patiently explained why the human mining operation should be respected and protected. They spoke of balance in the universe, of the responsibility that came with power, and of the importance of protecting younger species as they learned to find their place among the stars. Most remarkably, Captain Grentok actually listened. As the conversation went on, it became clear that the Velthari held a position of enormous respect among the older galactic civilizations. Even aggressive species like the Krillians acknowledged their wisdom and authority. The humans may continue their work, Captain Grentok finally agreed. Under Velthari protection, they have the right to mine this sector. We will spread word of this protection to other Krillian fleets. See that you do, Kethvar replied. And remember, Captain, that strength without kindness is just another form of weakness. After the Krillian ship departed, its engines mysteriously restored to full function, the humans gathered around the dragons with amazement and questions. How did you know that captain's name? Wubin asked. All Krillian warship captains are known to us, Silandra explained. We have been watching the Star Peoples for many thousands of your years. We know who can be reasoned with and who cannot. Dr. Hyajin was fascinated by what she had learned. You said you taught the Krillians how to travel between stars. How old are your people? Old enough to have seen the birth and death of many civilizations, Kethvar answered. We were exploring the galaxy when most species were still learning to make fire. This revelation made the humans realize they had rescued beings of incredible importance. The Velthari were not just travelers or explorers. They were ancient guardians who had been watching over younger species for millennia. Why don't more people know about you? Taymin asked. Because wisdom often requires hiding, Pexai said, surprising everyone with his thoughtful answer. If everyone knew the Velthari still existed, every species would want our help with their problems. We cannot solve every conflict or fix every mistake. But you helped us, Yunsu pointed out. Because you first helped us. Kethavar replied, "and because your people show promise. In all our watching, we have seen few species that grow stronger without growing crueler. Most civilizations, when they become powerful, begin to take instead of give." Silandra moved closer to the group of humans. "Your people are different. You came to the stars to find resources for your homeworld, but when you found strangers in need, you chose to help instead of exploit. This shows wisdom beyond your years." Over the following days, the partnership between humans and dragons deepened in unexpected ways. The Velthari began sharing some of their vast knowledge about space travel, engineering, and the galaxy itself. They taught the humans how to listen to the songs that crystals made deep in the rock. With this knowledge, the mining operation became far more efficient and successful. They also shared techniques for building stronger materials and more efficient energy systems. But the most valuable gift was their friendship and protection. Word spread quickly through the galaxy that the human mining operation was under Velthari protection. Ships that might have threatened or attacked the small human outpost now gave it a wide berth out of respect for the ancient dragons. "This changes everything for our people." Taemin realized during one evening conversation with Kethavar, "Having your protection means humans can explore further and safer than ever before." "Protection is earned, not given," Kethavar replied. "Your people earned it by showing kindness to strangers who could offer them nothing in return. As long as humans remember this lesson, Velthari friendship will endure." Young Pexhai had become especially close to the human workers. He loved learning about their machines and their methods for solving problems. "May I stay here when our rescue ship comes?" he asked Taemin one day. "I want to keep learning from the worm makers." "You would be welcome to stay as long as you want," Taemin replied. "But won't your family miss you?" "Velthari families are not like human families," Silandra explained. "We believe young ones learn best by experiencing many different teachers and ways of life. If Pexhai wishes to study with humans, this would be considered a great honor." Dr. Hyejin was documenting everything, knowing that this first contact between humans and Velthari would be remembered for generations. "This is the most important discovery in human history," she told Taemin. "Not just meeting an alien species, but forming a friendship with beings who have watched over the galaxy for thousands of years." As if summoned by their conversation about the future, the long-range sensors detected a new ship approaching the asteroid. But this time it was not a threat. The ship that appeared on the long-range sensors was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. It was not made of metal and plastic like human vessels, but seemed to be grown rather than built. The hull rippled with patterns of light that flowed like living rivers across its surface. "It's beautiful," Dr. Hyejin whispered as they watched the organic vessel approach the asteroid. "It looks alive." "Because it is alive," Kethavar said with obvious joy in his voice. "That is a Velthari songship. Our people have found us at last." The three dragons began making musical sounds that filled the thermal station with harmony. But these were not the sad songs of before, or the powerful songs that had disabled the Krillian warship. These were songs of pure happiness and reunion. Pexhai was so excited he could barely stay still. "My pod parents are on that ship," he said, using a Velthari term that Dr. Hyejin's translator had trouble processing. "And the songkeeper Morthak. He is one of the oldest and wisest of all our people." As the living ship settled gently onto the asteroid's surface, its hull opened like a flower blooming. Dozens of Velthari flowed out, their scales shimmering with colors that had no names in human language. They were all different sizes and ages, from ancient dragons whose scales had turned silver with time to young ones, barely larger than Pexhai. The reunion was a sight the humans would remember for the rest of their lives. The newly arrived dragons surrounded Kethavar, Silandra, and Pexhai, touching them gently with wingtips and making soft musical sounds of relief and joy. The harmony of their combined voices made the very air seem to sparkle. From among the group of dragons, one figure approached the humans. This dragon was clearly very old, with scales that shifted between deep gold and silver. When he moved, it was with the slow dignity of someone who had lived for many centuries and seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. "I am Morthak, songkeeper of the Third Fleet," the ancient dragon said. His voice carried harmonics so complex that the human translation equipment could barely process them. "You are the worm makers who saved our lost ones." Taemin stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. "I am Taemin, foreman of this mining operation. We were glad to help your people when they needed it. Morthak studied Taimin with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. Young warm maker, what you call helping, we call the greatest gift one being can offer another. You showed kindness to strangers who could give you nothing in return. This creates bonds that span stars and time itself. What happened next was completely unexpected. Morthak began to sing. But this was different from any dragon song the humans had heard before. Other Velthari joined their voices to his, creating a harmony so beautiful and complex that it seemed to touch something deep in the human soul. They are singing about us, Dr. Haijin realized, tears streaming down her face. They're creating a song to remember what happened here. As the song continued, more dragons approached the humans. Each one touched them gently, a gesture that Dr. Haijin later learned was how the Velthari shared memories and emotions. The humans could feel waves of gratitude, respect, and something even deeper. We offer exchange gift, Morthak said when the song ended. Your people saved Velthari lives. Velthari will share life knowledge with your people. Over the next several days, something unprecedented happened. The Velthari began teaching the humans technologies and sciences that were thousands of years ahead of anything Earth had developed. They shared their understanding of harmonic engineering, showing how sound and vibration could be used to manipulate matter at the atomic level. Wu Bin could hardly believe what he was learning. They're showing us how to grow metal instead of mining it, he told Taimin. How to create energy by singing to crystals. How to build ships that repair themselves. But the most important gift was not technology. It was recognition. In a ceremony that lasted 3 days, the Velthari formally declared humans to be star friends, the first species to receive this honor in over 1,000 years. Star friends are under Velthari protection throughout the galaxy, Morthak explained to the assembled humans. Any who harm you harm us. Any who trade with you trade with us. You are no longer alone among the stars. Dr. He-Jin understood the magnitude of what was happening. This changes everything for humanity, she whispered to Taimin. We've just become one of the protected species in the galaxy. As the time came for most of the Velthari to depart, Pexhai made his request official. Songkeeper, I wish to remain here and continue learning from the Warm Makers. Will you grant permission? Morthak considered this carefully. The young one wishes to be our first permanent ambassador to the Star Friends, he said to Taimin. Would your people accept such an arrangement? We would be honored, Taimin replied immediately. Before the Velthari ship departed, Morthak had one final conversation with Taimin. Young Foreman, your people stand at a crossroads. You can become like so many others who grow powerful and then grow cruel, or you can remain as you are now, growing stronger while staying kind. How do we stay on the right path? Taimin asked. Remember this day, Morthak replied. Remember that your greatest strength is not your technology or your weapons, but your willingness to help strangers who need help. As long as humans remember this lesson, Velthari friendship will endure. The living ship departed as gracefully as it had arrived, its bioluminescent hull fading into the star-filled darkness, but it left behind something precious. Young Pexhai, who had chosen to stay and learn from the humans who had saved his life. What happens now? Hyunsu asked as they watched the ship disappear. Now we build something new, Taimin replied, a partnership between two species that could change the galaxy. Pexhai spread his wings wide, no longer shivering from cold but warm with purpose. The Warm Makers and the Velthari together, he said happily. We will make beautiful songs and find wonderful crystals and explore places no one has ever seen before. As the mining operation continued its work, now enhanced by Velthari knowledge and protected by their ancient authority, word began to spread throughout the galaxy. Humanity had found its place among the stars not through conquest or intimidation, but through the simple act of showing kindness to strangers in need. And in the depths of space, other species began to take notice of the young civilization that had somehow earned the friendship and protection of the legendary Velthari. 6 months after the Velthari rescue ship had departed, the mining station on Kepler 442b had transformed into something remarkable. It was no longer just a place where humans dug crystals from frozen rock. It had become the first joint human-Velthari research facility, a place where two very different species worked together to explore the mysteries of the universe. Pexhai had grown during his time with the humans, not just in size but in understanding. He had learned to operate human machinery with his claws, and had taught the humans how to hear the songs that different materials made when they vibrated. The young dragon had become a bridge between two worlds. "Look what we discovered today," Pexhai said excitedly to Taemin, gesturing toward a new crystal formation they had found deep in the asteroid. "When we sing to these crystals in harmony with your drilling machines, they grow larger and more perfect." The partnership had produced amazing results. The mining operation was now extracting 10 times more crystals than before, and the quality was far superior to anything humans had found previously. But more importantly, they were learning to work together in ways that neither species could have achieved alone. Dr. Heejin had spent months studying Velthari knowledge and was making breakthrough discoveries almost daily. "They understand physics in ways we never imagined," she told Taemin during one of their regular reports to Earth. "They don't just use technology, they communicate with it. They sing to matter itself and convince it to change." Word of the human-Velthari partnership had spread throughout the galaxy. Ships from dozens of different species had visited the asteroid, some out of curiosity, others hoping to establish trade relationships. The humans found themselves suddenly important in galactic politics, not because of their military power, but because of their friendship with the ancient and respected Velthari. "We've received another delegation request," Jaehyun reported to Taemin. "This time it's from the Zephyrian Trade Council. They want to discuss exclusive mining rights agreements." Taemin was still getting used to being treated as an important diplomatic figure. Just a year ago, he had been a simple foreman worried about keeping his workers safe. Now he was making decisions that affected interstellar trade and politics. "What do you think, Pexhai?" Taemin asked. "Should we agree to meet with them?" The young dragon considered carefully. "The Zephyrians are fair traders," he said. "My pod parents have dealt with them before. But remember, as star friends, you do not need to accept any deal that does not benefit your people." This was one of the most valuable lessons the humans had learned from their partnership with the Velthari. Being under their protection meant that other species had to treat humans as equals, not as a weak young civilization that could be exploited. The changes reached far beyond the asteroid. Back on Earth, the governments were struggling to understand how a simple mining operation had suddenly become humanity's most important diplomatic outpost. The technologies and knowledge shared by the Velthari were advancing human science by centuries. "We're building the first harmonic engines based on Velthari designs," Wu Bin reported during a video call with Earth Space Development Council. "Ships using these engines will be able to travel 3 times faster than our current vessels, and will be almost impossible to detect." But the most significant change was in how humans saw themselves in the galaxy. No longer were they struggling newcomers trying to find their place among more advanced civilizations. They were star friends, protected and respected because of their demonstrated kindness and wisdom. "Sometimes I wonder if this is all real," Yunsu said to Taemin as they watched Pexhai teaching a group of human children how to sing to crystals during a video call with Earth. "A year ago, we were just miners. Now we're ambassadors to an ancient dragon civilization. It's real," Taemin replied, watching the joy on the children's faces as the crystals began to glow in response to their voices. "And it started with a simple choice. When we found 3 strangers dying in the cold, we chose to help them instead of worrying about the risks or the costs." Dr. Heejin had been documenting everything for the historical record. "Future generations will study this moment," she said. "The day humanity became truly important in the galaxy, not through war or conquest, but through an act of simple kindness." As if summoned by their conversation, Pexhai approached them with news that would change everything once again. "I have received a song message from Songkeeper Morthak," the young dragon announced. "The Velthari Council of Elders has made a decision about the humans." Taemin felt his heart skip. "What kind of decision?" "They want to invite a human delegation to visit the Velthari homeworlds," Pexhai said, his eyes glowing with excitement. "No species outside our own has ever been granted this honor. You would be the first warm makers to see the heart of songs, the ancient world where the Velthari first learned to sing to the stars." The magnitude of this invitation was almost impossible to comprehend. The Velthari homeworlds were legendary, spoken of in whispers by the oldest galactic civilizations but never seen by outsiders. "Why?" Taemin asked. "Why would they offer us such an incredible honor?" "Because the Council believes that humans and Velthari together can accomplish things that neither species could achieve alone," Pexhai explained. They want to propose a formal alliance, one that would make your peoples partners in exploring the unknown regions of the galaxy. Dr. Hye-jin was already imagining the possibilities. Joint exploration missions using both human technology and Velthari knowledge. We could map parts of the galaxy that have never been seen before. There's more, Pexhai continued. The Council wants to establish permanent Velthari teachers on human worlds and send young humans to study on Velthari worlds. A true exchange of knowledge and culture. As they discussed the incredible opportunities opening before humanity, Taemin reflected on the chain of events that had led to this moment. It had all started with 3 dying aliens seeking help in a frozen cave, and 1 human foreman who chose compassion over caution. What do you think, Pexhai? Taemin asked. Do you believe humans are ready for this kind of partnership? The young dragon spread his wings and made a sound that was pure joy. I have lived among worm makers for half a year, he said. I have seen how you solve problems by working together. I have seen how you care for each other and even for strangers like me. You are more than ready. You are exactly what the galaxy needs. That evening, as Taemin prepared the message that would inform Earth about the Velthari invitation, he stood at the observation window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere among those points of light were the Velthari homeworlds, ancient beyond imagination and now open to human visitors. Pexhai joined him at the window. What are you thinking about, Foreman Taemin? I'm thinking about how one choice can change everything, Taemin replied. When we found you and your family dying in that cave, I never imagined it would lead to this. The best choices are often the simplest ones, Pexhai said wisely. Help those who need help. Be kind to strangers. Share what you have with those who have less. These are not complicated ideas, but they are the most important ones. As humanity prepared to take its next great step into the galaxy, guided by the friendship of the ancient Velthari, the lesson remained clear. The greatest strength was not in weapons or technology, but in the willingness to extend kindness to those in need, no matter how different they might seem. And in the cold depths of space, where 3 dying dragons had once begged a human foreman for safety, that kindness had grown into something that would reshape the destiny of both species and echo through the stars for generations to come.